Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of your very favorite real estate podcast on all of the internet, and that is Liftoff. I'm joined by my co-host and father, Keith Myers, and a very special guest we have today, the very amazing, incredible, very knowledgeable, and pulchritudinous, you should look that up, Daniel Dennis.
Amazing. I've never gotten an amazing before. I appreciate that, Derek.
Hey,
It's exciting to have you part of the leadership team. I know that right now you guys are drinking out of a fire hose and have a lot of things layered onto what you are already doing. And we're excited to hear a little bit about this as we go through. You want to give us just a brief background when you went from Alabama to South Florida?
Yeah, I'm sitting in South Florida right now, but I haven't been here until today for about 2 weeks because we had a little news that you might have heard about with the Real acquiring REMAX last week. And so I've been in Denver for a little while and it's been a lot of fun, but it's been wild. You just work through the weekend. You don't know what day it is. You're answering calls. You're trying to continue with the business as usual, but sometimes it's accelerated for sure. So it's great, but it's an honor to be here and I'm really proud to join you guys. As you mentioned, I led a real estate company in Alabama and I have been down here in South Florida in Palm Beach, where I led a company called Illustrated Properties. We had about 700 agents and 22 offices. It was a luxury company that was a Forbes Global Property affiliate. And that's how I got to Palm Beach and got to Florida. But we always say that you just never know. That's my mentor, Sue Winter, used to say that all the time. She would say, you just never know when you get up, get dressed, go to sales meeting, go to the office, drive a different way home, what you're going to see, who's renovating their house, what you're going to notice that's going to lead to this particular piece of business, but you never know who you're going to end up with. We were, prior to being a Forbes affiliate, we were a Christie's affiliate, obviously the Christie's auction house luxury partnership. And the president of Christie's was a guy named Chris Lim. And so when he left Christie's and went to REMAX, he said, hey, I want you to go with me. And so that's how I got here. And I've been here 2 days and 1 year as of today here. So it's been a lot of fun.
Nice. Happy anniversary. We're happy to have you. And yeah, you mentioned Chris Lim. We've had him as a guest on our show before. And a lot of the team has been fascinating to watch. I hear the phrase new pace of play that has been thrown out frequently over the last year throughout the team. So could you walk us through what that means for both those who are within REMAX and maybe those who are not aware of what's new when it comes to what's happening?
Well, we say different pace of play. It is a accelerated pace. I will tell you, we work all the time. So I guess that's what that means, but I don't know what the pace of play, quote, end quote, was prior to us getting here. That being said, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give everybody out here, all of our agents all over the country and really all over the world, the advantage that regardless of AI, regardless of all the changes in the industry, regardless of the consolidation, there's a couple different truisms. And one of them is you work with who you know. You work with who you know, trust. And when we go in and we sit at somebody's kitchen table or we sit on their 53-foot Hatteras here in Palm Beach and we say, hey, we'd like to list your house on Jupiter Island for $25 million. You don't have to sell your company. You just have to sell yourself. And if we do a great job of that, we will continue to not just preserve, but enhance the most respected and recognized name in real estate all over the world. And that's what we came here to do. And that's what it's all about. We've had a lot of different launches and initiatives and things that we've rolled out. But I think probably the biggest thing that can help our agents is I used to sit with my new agents and I would say, our top agents aren't here, but they have a vested interest in what's going on in this room because your company is the company you keep. And who we invite to come into this network, just like who we invited to come into my individual companies that I've led, is the most important thing we can do for you because that's going to carry the day. That's what's going to give you a better reputation or detract from that reputation. And so I'm really proud of some of the people that we brought in, the companies that we brought into the network. Some of the bigger companies like the highly respected Reese family in Canada, and that was a giant conversion. Dean de Tonancourt in Rhode Island, it was the number one company in Rhode Island. REMAX Hawaii with Myron. These are fantastic people that our owners can get together with, collaborate with, and they've got terrific agents as well that will add value, not just sales value, but intangible value in terms of quality and professionalism and integrity. And that's what we're trying to build at the end of the day. Tech is an accelerator. There's lots of stuff going on with the acquisition with regard to tech. There will be. That's going to be really exciting. We spend time, money, resources, et cetera. But at the end of the day, relationships are the core of our company. We only use tech and invest in tech so that we can foster what's really important, which is the relationships we have with our broker owners, with our agents, and of course, with our buyers and sellers.
Yeah, so let's address that elephant in the room. When you talk about taking a drive down the street and don't expect something, you turn left, you see somebody planning a move.
Call them up. Hey, I heard you're doing this. That's an opportunity.
That's right. But I did a quick trip to where Derek is in Georgia to see him and the grandkids for a long weekend. And as I'm driving to the airport early on Monday morning and very early on the Pacific Coast, he called me. He goes, guess what? Travis just posted Realbot REMAX. You guys did a great job of keeping it secret. Nobody knew. I knew. I talked to some people there that I deal with. They didn't know. I certainly didn't know.
We've gotten a lot of questions about that. I told a group of broker owners the other day, I said, I think the number one rule in this business where we're launching something to our broker owners or to our agents or whatever is that we want certain people that can help spread the message. We want them to know beforehand. But obviously, when you're dealing with the Securities and Exchange Commission, you do not want to do that because we're not interested in going to jail for insider trading. So that's why it was held secret, but we wish we could have told you.
Yeah, no, and I understood, but it was a surprise. There's been a lot of talk about maybe an association, some kind of a merger with somebody would be coming about. I didn't see it to be real. And on the surface, I thought totally different microcosms of agents. One that's a legacy brand since 73, global, more countries than anybody, highest producing agents, bricks and mortars and local leadership. And then you've got Real, who's, I believe, leading the pack on the virtual office, AI, tech-enabled, centrally run without local offices and such. And I don't know how they could merge. And that's what kind of quickly became apparent to me. Then it's not a merger, it's truly an acquisition. And what makes sense for Tamir and Real is to take this amazing company, REMAX, and make it better with some of the things that they do. Do I have it right?
Yeah, I think it does get confusing if you think about it like this merger where you're going to have, I think there were people that were posting, I saw all kinds of stuff on social media. They were posting Real and REMAX together. And of course, when you read the literature, they're going to be operated as two separate brands, preserving the culture and the identity of each, which is what everybody joined. Those agents joined that company. Our agents joined this company, and for very different reasons. And so when you can operate together under one holding company and have some support services and things on the back end, but then preserve those two different identities, it's really powerful, especially when you've got one that is so strong in technology and another that is so strong with regard to having autonomy and local leadership and a broker owner that knows what they're doing in their individual communities, having the most prolific brand in the world, et cetera, et cetera. When you can mirror those two, I think I said to somebody the other day, it's like of course, I can't say this to you all, but it was like the 85 Bears, the ultimate team, right? When you can put both of those together.
You're saying that because we're Packers fans?
Are you a Packer fan?
Go Pack,
I'm impressed. Go. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. In fact, my pops, he probably wouldn't have mentioned it, but he was drafted by the Green Bay Packers in 78, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
That is super cool.
I didn't. State.
That's trivia. I am the second best quarterback ever drafted by the Packers that came out of Utah State.
That is fantastic.
We'll give it the number one to Jordan Love. But yeah, so there's a terrific question.
I had no idea. Well, Lambeau is a special place, and having a beer at Lambeau at 8:00 in the morning is really a special place with all those people yelling when you're walking to the stadium.
Yeah, you're right there in the neighborhood, right?
That's right. It's cool.
It's fun. But yeah, that talks about leadership. They've been leaders in different times in the NFL, and we aim to be leaders within the community of real estate brokerages and agents. And we are devoted to providing those things that help our agents be successful. So some of the noise, do we get rev share now? Do we call ourselves real REMAX? And I have to explain that it's right now, as far as I can see, that you're going to be one or the other. And here's the advantage of
That's
the
right.
each.
And they're pretty clear in the FAQs and all of that, which is available to everybody. I was telling you before the call, I said, I don't think I know anything that's not in those FAQs. I said, the problem is that very few people read them.
Yeah.
I did have somebody say that I heard, of course, it's like whoever they is, that they're going to shut us down. And I was like, I guess they could, but $880 million investment to shut something down doesn't seem like a fruitful strategy to me.
No, and even if you don't shut them down, you try to marry them in, you don't wipe out a brand that powerful, meaning REMAX.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have paid for it.
You wouldn't have paid that. No, you would have just gone and tried to recruit every agent like happens every day. So good. So back to you, and then for us within the industry, and particularly at REMAX, it's back to pedal to the metal, right?
Absolutely.
Usual stuff.
Yeah, because all of those things, the things that we've been trying to do, which is enhance our brand, help our broker owners so that they can help our agents. We've got our program for broker owners called Momentum Plus, and we'll be launching a Momentum Plus for agents, which is essentially a baseline foundational how to run a more efficient company, how to support your agents more effectively, which translates over. If we can take care of our owners and then have them take care of our agents, then we're all going to be stronger and it will come back around. Take care of we used to say in Alabama, take care of the people and they'll take care of you. And that's our philosophy right now. But I will tell you what I've been telling my former agents that call. And this world, we say it all the time, but there is so much noise and so much nonsense right now. And if you are, I guess it's good to get on there and read a Inman and to watch these, it's fine, but it is not going to yield a buyer or a seller. It is not going to, unless you're going to have more conversations with more clients, you're not going to do more business. And if you're focusing on this, or you're focusing on other nonsense and you're tainting your mind by getting on this social media with the negative politics and all the different things that can really jeopardize your mindset and your ability to focus, follow one course until successful, focus, then you're really putting yourself in a compromising situation. So all this is fun to talk about, and there'll be tremendous benefits to our agents and our broker owners. But at the end of the day, right now, we've got to price things correctly. And we got to use the listing that we get to get another listing, because that's the name of the game. And we got to manage the listings that we have, which sometimes require having conversations with our sellers, which seemingly may not exist because we don't have a showing. But there is always something that we don't even think about subconsciously. Those tidbits of information, they have to be delivered to the seller, and it has to be done deliberately every day so that you don't lose that connectivity, because there still is that disconnect where the buyers and sellers have no idea what's really going on in the market. The buyers think it's worth this, the seller thinks it's worth this, and our commission is right there in the middle. And that's our job. It's always been like that. We went through a few years where we got off course, where the seller was shocked at how much they were getting and the buyer was just glad to get it. But that's not the way it is. Our commission lies in the gap and the delta between those two right there. And so that's what we should think about every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things that you said that triggered a recent story that I heard my dad tell, and I'm teeing you up, Pops, because I want you to share it, is the importance of connectivity and communication. And I think that we talked about earlier about being connected to the consumer, and every bit of the changes that are going on are to best serve the consumer, buyers and sellers, in a better capacity, even at macro level that we're seeing with the acquisition. Like at the end of the day, that is what it's going to hopefully be, is that we're arming agents with a better environment that's going to help them best serve their clients. And so I say all that to bring it back to what I was hinting at originally, that communication, staying connected is so important. And it's something that can mean something different entirely from one person to another, and even to the agent. I've heard it said that communication is like a drawbridge, right? It takes two sides to be able to meet for the message to be properly conveyed from one side to the other. So with that said, Dad, do you remember the recent conversation you had with one of your sellers? And can you share that story? And Daniel, I'd also love to get your feedback too on some of that. But I wanted you to share the story where you had that conversation with the seller saying, hey, I wish you would have you communicated a little bit more with me. Do you remember what
he can take it, and I'm not going to jump in, but you hit the nail on the head, especially right now, because we're texting offers and we're not having a conversation. We're missing a huge opportunity. It's also getting lost in translation, and people are getting ticked off because they interpret the text to mean something that it absolutely does not mean. But go ahead, Keith. I'm sorry. Had to get
that's
that
a good
in.
point.
Yeah, it's true. What happens is, and this is an example that can be repeated many times, is that if we wait for the seller to contact us to say, hey, what's going on my listing, my house, I don't know what's going on, then we failed. We have not done the right job, and we need to put systems in place to provide ongoing feedback, even if it's nothing, even if you don't have anything new to talk about, you can get in touch, share something that's going on in the market, what you're doing behind the scenes, so that they can appreciate that. And I think the one you're talking about specifically is that I fell on my sword and I said, you're right, because I do sell some real estate. My wife is my partner and has taken over the vast majority of that. But I find that if I don't do that, I can't be as an effective a leader to lead my agents if I don't walk in their shoes. And we've come out of a market where you talked about a couple of years ago, where if it didn't sell with 10 offers by the Tuesday after it was put in MLS on Thursday or Friday, we're thinking, what'd I do? I must have been way overpriced.
100%.
So now, through the 40 years that I've been in this business, I've been through markets where it takes 60, 90, 120 days sometimes to sell homes. Sometimes it doesn't sell the first time. So during that process, that you have to constantly provide them information. I apologized and said that I'll do better, and I appreciate the call. So I empathized with them. I admitted that we could have done better and reestablished that relationship, strengthened it back up, and on we go. And ironically, we did sell it within only a few days after that. A better example of that is one of my agents had a listing. She sold it, fell out of escrow. That buyer asked for all different kind of things, and the seller agreed to give a credit, redo this and that thing. And then ultimately that buyer canceled. Seller wanted to cancel the listing. It's just, you should have done better. And man, it's not working. And it took you 30 days to get that buyer. And I think we're going to go a different direction. And we still had time on the listing. So we all talked together, and I said, I understand your frustration. It's a frustrating time, but give us another week. She does have some people. And if in fact, even though we have another month left on our agreement, give us another week, give us through the weekend and into about Wednesday of next week. And if in fact, she does have the buyers that are coming out, we're coming out of the holiday period, it's now late January. If she cannot get something together, then we can talk again and talk about letting you move away from us. And ultimately, she did get a couple of offers, sold it for a net $150,000 more than it would have sold to this other buyer that was beating them up, and ended up closing. And she just built a raving fan that has already referred her to somebody else. So it took a transaction that looked like it was going to be bad Yelp reviews and bad Zillow review to a raving fan with 5-star reviews. So and a lot of it takes the communication. And you're great at that, Dan. You've understood that by leading your minions and all of the companies that you've been with now. And
you've got a raving fan reference, and if Derek and the rest of the young bucks haven't read Raving Fans, then they need to. It's a good book. An old trying to. So I use a very sophisticated, highly technical method called the 3x5 method. And so what I do every single day is, if I go to sleep tonight, the 4 disciplines of execution, Covey talks about the whirlwind competing with the strategic things, and they're in a war with one another every day. And of course, the whirlwind is the emails, the urgent things, the emergencies, the inspector can't get in and the keys out, whatever it is, emails, all this stuff. But then the strategic things are actually the things when you go to sleep that night and you tell your spouse, what did you do today? And it's the first things that come to mind, because that's the things that are going to be accretive to actually moving your business forward. And if I don't do those things on those 3x5 cord, by the time I go to sleep, I could have done 1,000 things, but I haven't been successful. And I think that for our sellers right now, or for our agents, they've got to be talking to their sellers once a week. Maybe different forms of communication. I would verbally talk to them once a week. unless you've got somebody that just absolutely doesn't want to do. But then I would be texting them. I'd text them an article. I'd text them when something came on the market. I would text them when something happened in the community that might impact their listing. I would, especially if there's something that came on the market or something that sold, so they can look at pricing. We've got a $200 million producer down here in South Florida, and he says Mr. or Mrs. Market decides the market. Mr. or Mrs. Seller does not decide the market, or Mr. or Mrs. Buyer. And they are an independent third party who doesn't give a rip about the antique hardwood flooring or this marble that my great grandfather whittled out of one canyon. They only care about what the market is. And sometimes he says you have to put them in the car and you have to go look at the competitive listing, and you have to say, walk in here. This house is the same as yours. Now let's do a true comparison on price. And I'll tell you, the other thing that he said the other day is he gets real fired up. And he's, Daniel, if you're waiting to talk to a seller and renew your listing agreement 2 weeks before, they've already talked to somebody else. They're already gone. And so that consistent communication on a weekly basis and communicating when there's seemingly nothing to communicate is an art, but we got to be deliberate about and intentional about doing it every day.
It's much easier to deliver the bad news when things happen if you've been engaged, because now you've been in this together, as opposed to this long distance where, my agent's just put it out there and he's waiting for his money. Right. If you're going along and they're up to date on all the different things you've done and the mailers you do and the open houses and the details after the open houses and the feedback from every showing, and then all of a sudden you're in escrow for some bad reason, the appraisal comes in low or the inspections too many things that you didn't expect, but you're in it together, you can solve it easier. And those times that you're on the market for a long time, hasn't sold, and you have to have that conversation, which pretty much every listing agent and seller having now is, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, looks like the market has rejected our price. I'm sorry that's happened, but now we need to react to it. So
I like that. I like that line, because it's the market has rejected our price. Not, I haven't rejected the price. Our buyers haven't rejected the price. It's not personal. It is a independent, arm's length third party that has no biases and has no friends.
That's a good way of looking at it. So what would you say is the biggest hurdle that agents are up against with staying consistent with communication? And what is one way that they could fight against that?
You win the morning. It starts in the morning, right? In the morning. Sure. You win the day, right? You win the day, you win the week, you win the week, you win the month, you win the month, you win the year. And if the first thing you do is pick up this stupid thing right here, it's a cute little person on there that I've got, my little sweetie. But if I start scrolling on things that are going to cloud my focus and my judgment and are going to bring me down, my confidence level down, there's plenty of bad things. And what you don't realize is the subconscious nature of and the impact that it will have on your brain and your ability to do what every successful top producer has done, which is to be myopic. You know what I mean? And that's why I am convinced the hardest job in the world to hire for in this country or any country is to hire a real estate manager, real estate broker. It is the hardest thing in the world, because you have to have sold real estate, right, to be a manager. But usually the best agents aren't the best managers, and the best managers aren't the best agents, because it's a difference between thinking about waking up and saying, how do I wake up today and think about everybody knowing me, respecting me, and liking me and trusting me, right? Because that's how I build business. To being a real estate manager where I think, how do I help support Jane today? How do I help support Derek today? How do I get people to know, trust, and like them? That is two different skill sets, but yet you have to have done one without the other. And that's what makes it very different. But those characteristics of those top producers have not changed. They've gotten even more laser focused, which is because there's more noise. And I will tell you, there's NAR data that indicates that the business has actually become much more top heavy than it was before. And it was a top, we always talk the 80-20 rule. It's not the 80-20 rule. It's the 90-10 rule, right? And there are specific things that top producers do that are clearly different than the others. And of course, the first one is when they have a success. I used to call it going to the beach back when I was here in Florida, but also in Alabama. But they'd have a sale and make a $25,000 commission, and they're, quote, headed to the beach. But the top producer is back in the office the next day and isn't blinking. And success creates a blatant disregard for doing things the right way. And that's been coming out of this wave where it was crazy town, until the rates went up in April of 2022.
Right.
It was crazy town. And so that more than anything has impacted our mindset and our ability to push through and become a higher producing agent.
Yeah, for sure. The thought on managers, that's always been difficult because you're right. They're not really wired. If you got to have someone that really has a heart of a teacher, enjoys helping people, but you're never going to be able to pay a manager as much as you're going to earn as a independent contractor agent making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
especially in South Florida with our average sales price, because they can really sell one house if it's the right house and make more than what I could pay them all a year.
Same here in Southern California. We just had a $9 million one close. Not me personally, but one of our great agents. But yeah, that's a nice one.
Tell her or him to get back to work. Don't stop. Don't call it a year, because she'll pay for it in the fall and next year.
You know who that person is, so he's already well on to many more. Well, question, is this not even be your strength or that sort of thing? As we continue to move through this continuum of tech and AI and such, I'm constantly looking for that new mousetrap. We've all learned there have been companies like SmartZip who claim that they have capabilities, looking all kind of metrics to find predictive analytics to find that next to sell. Title companies use different tranches of information, largely time in the house and equity and things like that. Do you see a time where you guys, when you're chasing a lot of the different tech, where we can be better at actually predicting and contacting people that may be interested in making a move and being able to dial that message up a little easier?
Well, we're doing some testing with regard to that, but we're also doing some testing with regard to being able to identify whether an agent is going to leave. Okay. Because you think about that's our business and that's your business. And we're not there in terms of we've identified it. We've done some things to curb that. It's a little too early to know whether or not we're able to do that. But what I would say is that I think that those predictive analytics with regard to buyers and sellers are going to get better and better. But here's the way we've got to think. We already know, go look at it. If you take 200 homeowners around you, 200 people in your sphere, you know that statistically that 5 of them are going to buy or sell this year. You know it. But what we've tried to do is we try to go and pick the 5 out of the 200. But if I told you, I said, listen, Keith, Derek, here is 200 boxes. And there's a $10,000 check in one of the boxes, how many would you open? You'd open every single one of them. And that's the mindset, because at the end of the day, we act like it's an art game, it's a personality game, but there's some science that we're ignoring here, which is it is the law of numbers. And if you consistently take that sphere, I'm not suggesting that your sphere should be 200. I think it could be a little bit more, but do more with less, not less with more. Find a number that you're comfortable touching on a consistent basis in various formats. And it's all about TOMA, top of mind, and where the old school TOMA. Who is the first person that I think of when I think about selling my house? But find that sphere and think about it from the standpoint of there's a $10,000 check in one of these boxes, or probably 5 of these boxes if it's 200, and open every box. And if we change our mindset, I think we'll be better served.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. Good.
So for an agent who's maybe feeling fatigue from how arduous this market has been, like it's been a fight for a lot of people. Not everyone feels like they're at the peak of their career right now or just soaring in success. A lot of agents we speak to regularly are feeling a bit burnt out. What would you say is your advice if you were back in the shoes of leading agents day in and day out? What would you say to anybody that's experiencing that right now?
The first thing is what I've already said, which is get off of the junk first thing in the morning. That includes the food junk, but it includes the phone junk as well. Because what happens first thing in the morning scientifically carries throughout the entire day. It goes back to Make Your Bed by Admiral McRaven. It is that, and that is our business. That's any business, but really right now when there are so many ups and downs and letdowns, that's really important. The second thing is that I would say get out and do what we do. This is what I tell broker owners as well on the flip side, because it's a very similar business when you think about it. When you get down, when you get depressed, when you get people beating you up, get out with the people. So start having more conversations. Go to the Rotary Club, physically go to the gym and walk around before and after your workout and talk to people. Go to have lunch with customers. Go have lunch with friends. Get out amongst the people and create opportunities. Start driving a different way home, as we just said. Keep your eyes peeled for opportunities and quit getting focused on what's going on in the office. Quit getting focused on what's going on the computer and all of the administrative part. Get out among the people and rejuvenate yourself and create an opportunity.
Yeah, that's
well said.
Very, very sound advice.
I had a top producer I talked to a couple of months ago, and I said, "What are you doing? What are you working on? What are you trying to?" He said, "You know what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to have just one. It's hard to do. If you say I'm going to do it once, it sounds like you can do it, but there's all this junk, right? And it gets in the way. I want to have one uncomfortable conversation every single day, at least." And what that means by uncomfortable is he wants to call somebody that he sold a house to. He's been doing it a long time. He wants to call somebody he's lost touch with, where it's uncomfortable for him to make that call because he should have never lost touch. But you know what? Damn it. I'm going to make that call and I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to swallow the frog and I'm going to get back in touch with that person and get back in what Ninja Selling calls flow. I'm going to get back in flow with that customer.
Way of framing it too, because sometimes we set goals to attain and then we become discouraged. SMART goals is another way of looking at that, right? I'm going to butcher the
measurable.
Yes, specific, measurable, attainable, and time-based or something like that. Look it up, Google it. Yeah. But anyway, it had me thinking of a neuroscience perspective. This is a topic that I'm fascinated by and find a lot of relevance in. And it's the reticular activating system of the brain. Essentially, in short, is that we find what we look for. And so to your point, if we're paying attention to things that are feeding this anxiety or this burnout, that's what we're going to find. But if you're feeding yourself on a mindset that I'm going to succeed, I'm going to have that tough conversation, and that is an indication that I'm moving in the right direction, I'm cutting against the grain, I'm following my plan, that to me is a great way to repeat that. And that's dopamine. That's what we all look for to stay motivated.
You're exactly right. You can look it up, but it is science. If you were looking at cars and you are interested in blue SUV Infinities, you're going to start seeing and noticing all the SUV Infinities that are blue that travel past you every day. And prior to that, you would have never noticed them.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I thank you all for being such tremendous partners. And I thank your agents, and I would love to come out to California and see them in person one day. I really appreciate it. This is the most exciting time to be a part of this brand in so long. And you've got some people that would absolutely, I call it living all out, diving on loose balls. That extra inch, Keith, let me test myself. Bar, star, and then I think Bill Curry was the center. I think Bill Curry was Bart Starr's center. And they're trying to get, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And it's 4th and 1, and they'll do whatever it takes to get across the goal line. So Coach Lombardi will give you that pat on the backside. We got a lot of people that are willing to do all of those things and are out there supporting you. And we're really grateful to be connected with you.
The ice boil, and you follow Jerry Kramer.
Holy smokes. What a tough, yeah. If you go into war, I want him in my foxhole.
So question for you, are you going to BOC this year?
Heck yeah, I'm going to BOC. It's going to be in Nashville, and I talk like I'm
there.
They think I'm from Tennessee or Georgia. I'm really from Alabama, but we got a big lineup ready, and we're going to have a blast for our broker owners in Nashville this year in August.
We'll be there. I think it's
crucial. It's all about story. Country music is obviously about storytelling, and even if you don't like country music, it doesn't really matter. We are storytellers, and back to what we were talking about, articulating your value. It is really difficult. And you're talking about that inspection. Right now, we got inspectors who are giving us a 150-page inspection that says that there's paint on the doorknobs, and people are drowning in data and they're starving for wisdom. They're drowning in data and they're starving for wisdom. And it's our job to create the wisdom. It must be a problem if there's paint on the doorknobs. I don't know. Maybe that's a dangerous situation. He wouldn't have written it in the 150-page inspection if it was not a problem. And of course, it's our job to navigate and clear the way for those things by instilling confidence. And that's what we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about telling that story. I think if I'm selling right now, what I'm doing is I'm actually taking the crazy stuff that we have to do to get to the closing table. And I'm taking real examples and I'm saying, okay, what am I going to do for you to earn this commission? I'm going to do like I did with Mrs. Jones, where I had to run over. We all have the stories. You just haven't articulated or put it on paper. I ran over and I took care of the kids while she went over to do this, that, and the other, because we were trying to close by 5 o'clock. I helped price it right. And we almost priced it at $450 when it should have been $400. And I did this. And I would give specific examples that are really relevant to your business. And if you're a new agent, I would find those stories within your offices and say, an agent did this. Another colleague of mine did this. And those are the things that are going to get you the listing, and they're going to keep the listing and help articulate and storytell why you should earn the commission.
Derek and I are both big fans of storytelling.
Story Brand by Donald Miller.
The guy.
Yep.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Very good one.
Well,
Part
thank
2
you.
of our episode, we'll dive into storytelling. So that's a little teaser for next time.
That's right.
I love it.
We got a lot going on. We want to be respectful of your time today, and we appreciate you. You keep working hard with the rest of the great crew there. Keep coming up with new and better ideas for us to serve our agents and then for them to serve the consumer, and everything will be right in the world.
We're grateful for you all for having a great agent base and running a great company. Really appreciate you.
Thank you. All right. Take care, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for next time.